Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to day 2 of American Kidney Fund's Kidney Action Week. I'm Melanie Paris, and I'm Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships and Education here at American Kidney Fund. And I want to thank you for joining us today. We are excited about the week sessions that we have and all the wonderful speakers that we have for you. Kidney Action Week, as you know, features a series of moderated expert panel discussions with experts in the kidney disease community, from nephrologists, nurses, social workers, and also patients. And what we hope to do with Kidney Action Week is to bring you very valuable information and also inspire you around kidney disease, and also to provide you with expert information and allow you to ask questions of our panelists. So we're very excited to have you, and I am very excited to introduce our speaker today for this session, Dr. Blake Schusterman. He is also known as the Cooking Doc, and today's session is a Q&A with Dr. Blake. I'll tell you a little bit about Dr. Blake. Dr. Blake is a nephrologist, and he also cooks. So he has a lot of information for you, not just about kidney disease, but also how to eat with kidney disease, because as we all know, that's one of the hardest things to do when you have kidney disease, or really any of us. Dr. Blake Schusterman is from Greenville, South Carolina. Well, he's based in Greenville, South Carolina. He's a nephrologist. He's also a cooking enthusiast with a passion for helping his patients enjoy healthy, kidney-friendly eating. Dr. Blake, and he is known, as I said, as the Cooking Doc, is a popular online cooking personality, and he has a website dedicated to helping people not only manage their kidney disease, but also be able to eat deliciously all the way through it. He is the author of the book, The Cooking Doc's The Cooking Doc's Kidney Healthy Cooking, a modern 10-step guide to preventing and managing kidney disease. He is the past president and physician partner at a large nephrology practice in Greenville, South Carolina. Dr. Blake received his medical degree from The Ohio State University and completed his internal medicine residency and nephrology fellowship at the University of Virginia. He is a board-certified nephrologist. He also serves as medical director at multiple dialysis centers and as a clinical assistant professor at the University of South Carolina School of Medicine in Greenville. So this session is all about getting your questions answered around eating with kidney disease. So I encourage all of you to join the conversation by typing your questions and comments into the window next to or below the Facebook live stream, or in the chat box to the right if you are joining us here on Kidney Action Week website. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. We know we have a full house, and it'll be a great discussion. So without further ado, I am presenting to you Dr. Blake Schusterman, the Cooking Doc. Thank you so much for joining us. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. As you know, eating with kidney disease is something that people want to learn a lot about. It can be really challenging, so we're just so happy to have you here to answer questions from our audience. Before we get started with questions, could you give us a brief overview of kidney disease and how nutrition can play a vital role?
Sure. So kidney disease is what happens when the kidneys are unable to do their functions perfectly. So a couple of the big things that the kidneys do are they filter out waste products that the body produces from either daily turnover or from the things that you eat. The kidneys are in charge of getting rid of a lot of those waste products in the urine. So if they're not doing their job correctly, those waste products can build up a little bit in your blood and give you a diagnosis of chronic kidney disease. And one of the things that is very important with managing kidney disease is using diet, because no matter where you are on the spectrum of kidney disease, diet can play a huge role in keeping those kidneys where they are and stable. And we're going to cover some great points here today. The first is that there's no one-size-fits-all diet for people with kidney disease. And this is something that is so important for everyone to remember. if you have kidney disease, your diet may be different than the person next to you that has kidney disease for a whole variety of reasons. And if you understand that point, it may help you keep from limiting some of the foods that maybe your neighbor has to limit. So there's no one size fits all diet for people with kidney disease. Now, if you have kidney disease, and this is something that I hear a lot from people that I see in the office, they don't feel like they have a lot of control oftentimes over their kidney disease. So sometimes kidney disease just keeps getting worse or causes a lot of stress. And one of the things that can help you take control of your kidney disease is by learning how to use diet to manage it, because that is one thing that you have control over. You have control over your diet, and the things that you do can make a difference, whether you're at stage 3 kidney disease, stage 5 kidney disease, have a kidney transplant, or on dialysis. It makes a huge difference along the way. And the last thing before we get to the questions, because I'm really excited to answer everybody's questions today, is that eating right for your kidneys is good for your whole body. I'm sure a lot of you have had the experience of going to see the doctor where you get kidney-specific advice. And in some ways, that's very important because you want your kidney doctor to give you that. But, you know, we have to look at everybody on the whole. So eating right for your kidneys is good for your gut microbiome. It's good for your brain. It's good for your heart. So you are not just eating for your kidneys. You're essentially eating for your whole body. And I hope we get to cover some of these topics more in depth. And I know people always have great questions. So I'm ready to get going.
Okay. So we'll open it up for questions now. But just to set the tone a little bit before we get to questions, why is eating and paying attention to those key nutrients that you mentioned so important when you're living with kidney disease?
So I break down the diet for people with kidney disease into 2 separate patterns. The first is foods that you want to eat because they will keep your kidneys functioning well, a pattern of diet that will keep your kidneys filtering at their stable level. The other part of a kidney diet is watching food that builds up in your body because your kidneys can't process them correctly. So some of the things that happen as your kidneys have trouble filtering are things like the potassium has trouble filtering by the kidneys. The phosphorus has trouble filtering by the kidneys. You may retain sodium. You may retain extra fluid. So these are all things that are going to be important for you to monitor when you eat them because your kidneys may not be able to handle them correctly.
Okay, thank you for that. And one more question. You are the cooking doc. What are some misconceptions that people have about eating with kidney disease?
There are a lot. And that's really one of the reasons why I got into this in general, is because there are so many misconceptions, especially regarding things like potassium. So we find that people who look up online for a generic diet for chronic kidney disease often find that it tells them to limit potassium. But a potassium limit does not apply to everybody who has kidney disease. So learning that there's not one size fits all for people who have kidney disease is probably the biggest misconception that I see. The other thing that I hear oftentimes from my patients is that they think that they are eating a low sodium diet because they are not using the salt shaker, when in fact there's a lot of salt hidden in the foods they are buying on the shelf or picking up at the store or the restaurant. So those are 2 big misconceptions that I get a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are really important points. So you're a nephrologist and you're also the cooking doc. What do you hope to teach people about cooking with kidney disease?
Well, one of the things that, first of all, I'm so happy to be in front of all of you out there with kidney disease or caring for somebody with kidney disease or a practitioner, because it shows me that you are so dedicated to wanting to better your health and better the health of the people you're caring for, and that's very inspiring. And what I want to get across to you is that you can take control of your kidney disease through the things that you eat. Is it going to be perfect and cure your kidney disease? Of course not. But using diet, no matter where you are on the spectrum of kidney disease, can be helpful. You just have to know how to adjust your diet to your specific situation, and asking for dietitian help, if you have one in your area, is often a great idea and way to help you hone in your specific diet for your specific situation.
And I think that's such a good point. So one question that I have for you, so when you are working with people who have kidney disease, what are some things that you think people struggle with? Sorry about that, everyone. Struggle with the most when they're learning how to eat with kidney disease?
Well, what don't they struggle with? It's overwhelming. So people struggle with flavor. So one of the tenets of a kidney healthy diet is cutting out the salt in the food, but anybody who eats good food knows that that salt often gives a ton of the flavor. So learning how to manage or make food taste good without salt is often a big challenge. I often hear that people have challenge when they're trying to combine things like a diabetic diet and a kidney healthy diet, because the traditional kidney healthy diets, if you look online, all tell you to avoid things like whole grains and wheats and things like that, where in fact those are kind of where you're steered towards if you have diabetes. So, finding the middle ground between those two is often difficult.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue into one of the questions that we just got in from our audience. So the question is, there are foods that are good for diabetes, there are foods good for high blood pressure and are bad for gout. It says, not sure what to eat anymore. What do you recommend?
So can you say the question again? So don't know what to eat at all, and what do you recommend? Is that the question?
Yes. So the question is, there are foods that are good for diabetes and high blood pressure, but bad for gout. So it's kind of what you were talking about before with you have other conditions where you have to manage what you eat. So this one looks like it's related to gout. So they're just not sure what to eat anymore. What do you recommend? And I'm assuming it's an individual who has kidney disease. This gout is often associated with kidney disease, and they're asking what you recommend.
Got it. That's a great question, because some of the things that you do hear about diets that are good for kidney disease, things like high oxalate foods like spinach, sometimes can run into issues where they create more gout, or the things often actually, the things that typically cause gout that we have to worry about are things like shellfish, things like red wine, things like red meat. And those are, three of the biggest triggers for gout. And if you take a step back, a lot of those foods also are ones that aren't great for kidney disease. So if you're able to avoid those things, then you're kind of hitting both sides of the coin. Now, the way I would look at it if I were you is I would kind of list a few things that really are causing you problems that are overlapping between the two. And I'm not sure what they are, but I know there are things that pop up on that list. And find the biggest triggers for your gout and just cross them off, whether or not they say to drink it or to eat it for people with kidney disease. And that way you can kind of focus on the things that are in the interlapping circles, not ones that are in one side but not the other.
Got it. So I'm just going to get into questions that I'm getting here. So here's a question. It says, what are some of the best cookbooks for chronic kidney disease? I've read yours. We have it here. We've recommended it. Maybe you can tell us what about your cookbook is so helpful for people who have kidney disease, and if there are other ones that you would recommend people try.
Sure. So, boy, it's hard to, off the top of my head, think of the other ones that are out there, but there are a few really good ones written by registered dietitians, and they show up kind of at the top of the list on Amazon. So those are the ones that I would head out if you weren't looking for something that is really kind of giving you a lot of specific information. And using a dietitian, if you have one in your office, can also help guide you towards a specific book. As far as self-promotion goes, with my book, I find it's helpful because I broke it down into two separate parts. The first part, we kind of go through 10 steps or 10 things that you should focus on when you have kidney disease. Focus on things like sodium and potassium and phosphorus and protein, really hitting the highlights of things that people always have questions about and that are very confusing. And then the second half of the book focuses on recipes and gives you ideas of recipes that will fit into your specific situation. The American Kidney Fund, if you have access to the internet, which I'm sure you do, has a great kidney kitchen, which has lots of recipes that are broken down by stage of kidney disease. And rather than buying a cookbook, I might start there.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, we've worked really hard to make sure that all of our recipes on Kidney Kitchen are evaluated. Well, they all are evaluated by a dietitian. So we have all of the nutrients available. Also, we have a variety of different recipes, different types of cuisines, and we also broke it down in terms of, something's easy to prepare, something's moderate, or if you're a more advanced cook. And then also, we wanted to make sure that the recipes tasted good. I mean, we just didn't want to have recipes on there that didn't have any flavors. So, that's exactly right. So thank you for recommending our site as well. So just one question, you did mention dietitian. How would you recommend someone work with their dietitian and making sure that not only that they're managing their disease, but also maybe some tips for cooking and how to monitor your intake of certain nutrients?
If you're able to find a dietitian in your area, and often your nephrologist will know one, they will be able to refer you to a dietitian. And if you have Medicare, most Medicare will cover a diagnosis or a visit to a dietitian if you have chronic kidney disease. So it's a great resource to use. And what that dietitian will do is they will look at your labs. They will look at your other medical problems, things like diabetes or high blood pressure, and give you a list of guidelines and even some specific numbers of how much sodium to eat or how much potassium to eat or how much phosphorus to eat, and really tailor it specifically to you. And what they can do, if it's a good dietitian, is kind of follow things, every 2 to 3 months to see how you're doing, to see how your blood work is doing, and work hand in hand with your kidney doctor to make sure you all are providing the best possible care. I will also say a couple other things. Melanie, you mentioned food tasting good. And one of the things that I find is that if people don't know how to cook some basic things, then the food that you're trying to make to help your kidneys won't taste very good. So find recipes that taste good. Otherwise, nobody in your house is going to eat them, and it's going to be much harder to follow a kidney healthy diet.
Absolutely. So let me get to some other questions here. And I think this really relates to what you just mentioned. One question is, what can you do to shift your lifestyle and diet to help with slowing progression of kidney disease?
Wait, I won't tell you that it takes work. So anything that you're doing to better your health and change your lifestyle to make food that benefits your kidneys is going to take a little bit of work, and it's going to take change. But this is good change. This is change that's going to make you feel better. It's change that is going to show up in your blood work and show up in your health. And finding that first step is often difficult. But a couple ways to do it are to first get the information that you need about where you are in your journey with kidney disease and what the specific potassium or phosphorus or sodium levels that you need to watch for. And then buy a cookbook. Learn to cook some basic things. Get in the habit of cooking at home, because a lot of the difficulties happen when you're out at a restaurant or driving through fast food. sometimes you can find some really easy habits to just kind of check off from the beginning, whether that's not going through the McDonald's drive-through, or not stopping at the gas station and picking up a Slurpee, or not eating on the run between things, between meetings. So these are little habits that you can start with that can make a big impression on your overall health and your kidney disease. So, learn to cook a little bit, get a cookbook, find out where you are in your journey, and then make a list of some of the things that are not good for you and your kidneys, and just start checking them off one by one. I find that sometimes slow change is good and works well. For example, I had somebody who stopped drinking soda over the course of 12 months. They just cut out a soda one day. And then, 1 week they would drink 6 sodas instead of 7. A week later, they would drink 5 sodas instead of 6. So just kind of slowly making changes that will help benefit your health.
I think that sounds great. So what you're saying is that you don't have to make this big shift into a whole new lifestyle, but there are some cases where you can start gradually, do something small, and then add to it week by week, and kind of gradually implement those changes so that you start to feel comfortable with them.
Exactly, because you think about the habits that you have, some of them you have built up probably over 20 or 30 years. And you want to make changes that will keep you healthy for the next 20 or 30 years or longer. So you don't have to make all those changes at once, because sometimes that is really hard. So it takes a long time to build up and develop these habits. Take your time getting into better habits, and make a pattern that you think can last you for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much for that. I know, all of us want to make some changes, and sometimes it is hard to do everything at once. Going back to some of these questions, let's see here. One this is from our Facebook Live. It says, is nettle leaf tea beneficial for helping to lower creatinine?
So the first answer of this question is I don't know a lot about nettle leaf tea. The second part of the question is that the second answer is that really there are no foods or teas or medicines that will lower your creatinine in a way that meaningfully impacts your kidney function. So I look at diet as a whole. So we have to make sure that everything that we're eating, or the majority of it, is focused on your health. And so there are a lot of ideas out there and websites that will tell you that one specific food or one specific tea will lower your creatinine level and get you better kidney function. And almost 100% of those are not accurate, and I think lead us to focus on something that seems maybe like a miracle cure or a miracle drink, when in fact it's the whole spectrum of what you eat and drink every day that's important. The only thing that I know that will lower your creatinine if you're having your blood drawn about an hour later is if you drink a lot of water. And that will lower your creatinine only because it's diluting it in your blood. It will not change at all your underlying kidney function. So I don't know specifically the details about nettle tea, but I tend to look at things kind of from a broader sense. And I know that there are no specific one food or one drink that is going to make a difference in your kidney function.
So can you just talk a little bit about that? Because we also have another question. Are there certain foods or drinks that could raise your EGFR? Why is that? Why are there, certain foods, and there's a lot of information out there about, things that could help, lower your creatinine level or regain your kidney function. Can you just give a quick summary of why that doesn't work?
Sure, and it's a great question, and everybody wants that one thing that will make their kidneys better, that will improve their GFR or lower their creatinine. That is something that we all are looking for that. And if there were something that would do that from a kidney doctor perspective, I would tell you to go ahead and, drink as much or eat as much of that as you want, because it will make a huge difference. But there is nothing like that. And the reason is that the kidneys are the most complex organ in the body, in my opinion. They are made of millions of these little filters called glomeruli, and then they're composed of these structures called nephrons. And these things are so complicated, the way they filter the blood and filter the creatinine and keep your body functioning in a healthy manner, that something that you eat or drink, there's not one thing that can get down to those kidneys and essentially repair those filters, which is what it takes to make those kidneys better. So these are complex organs in your back. And I know that everybody is looking for that one food or that one drink that will improve your GFR. There just isn't one. But I don't say that to discourage you. I say that because I want you to focus on eating as a whole and focusing on eating in a pattern that will benefit your kidneys and that hopefully will keep your GFR from falling at the same rate that it was before. So there are lots of things that you can do, but the kidneys are just too complex to fall for one food or one drink to make your GFR better.
So what you're saying is that there are no foods or supplements that can reverse the kidney disease, but with eating properly when you have it, sometimes there are things that you can eat or contribute to slowing down the progression of kidney disease?
Absolutely. You got it.
Okay. Let's get back to some of these questions here. Now, here's one that I know that we get often. Our viewer is saying, I've seen a lot of conflicting information online about alcohol consumption with kidney disease. I'm wondering how much I need to cut back to stay safe.
So alcohol itself has not been shown to have any detrimental effect on the kidneys directly. We know that alcohol will lead to higher blood pressure, though. So if you have a drink, it may increase your systolic blood pressure by a few points. And if you are drinking a lot of drinks during the day, then you may find that your blood pressure is raising up because of that alcohol that you are drinking. And so while alcohol does not directly impact the kidneys, it can certainly affect your blood pressure, and high blood pressure is a risk factor for kidney disease getting worse over time. So what I tell people is to try to stick to one drink if they can, because if you get more than that, it may impact your kidneys kind of in a roundabout way.
Okay, thank you. So some of these are a little bit related. So I see one about milk. Is almond milk a good substitute for skim milk? And another question related to milk is, I love oat milk, but not sure if it's okay. Can it be grouped with skim milk if you love oat milk?
So milks in general can give you problems if you have, usually it's stage 4 or 5 kidney disease or on dialysis. And because a lot of the milks are full of potassium and phosphorus. So some of the substitute milks like oat milk and almond milk may be able to give you a beverage that kind of tastes semi-similar maybe, but doesn't have those same electrolytes, those same minerals that could build up in your body. Mm-hmm. So I would say that both almond milk and oat milk can be had on a kidney-friendly diet, as can skim milk. But if the things to remember are that when you are drinking, I tell people mainly to stick with water because we know water is safe. But nobody wants to drink water all the time, obviously. So if you're having milk, if you leave it to 4 ounces or 8 ounces, and it's once a day or less, you can often make that into a kidney healthy diet, honestly, no matter what type of milk it is. And this is where it really gets important to look at your specific labs and find out where you are on the spectrum of kidney disease, and also talk to your dietitian, if you can find one, to see what fits specifically into your kidney health.
Well, that's a good segue into another question that we have, and it is about dietitians and being able to find the right dietitian for yourself. So this question is, what questions should I ask a dietitian when I'm vetting them if I don't have a referral?
I would start with asking them if they have experience caring for people with kidney disease, because somebody can be a dietitian, and if they're not experienced caring for people with kidney disease, then they may get lost in old recommendations. They may be Googling 10-year-old information the same as you would, and they won't have the most up-to-date information to help you, because things have changed a lot over the course of the last 5 to 10 years with what we recommend for people with kidney disease. So the most important thing is if they have experience caring for people with kidney disease. And I know that there are some, I don't know if it's the National Kidney Foundation or one of the other organizations that has a specific program for dietitians to help get certified. But if somebody has a specific certification in kidney disease, that is also very helpful.
Okay. So just going back to that a little bit, is there a difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist? If so, should somebody look for one or the other? What kind of credentials should someone be looking for if they're looking for someone to work with to help manage or help them with their eating and kidney disease?
I don't want to say something incorrect here or get ahead of myself with knowledge that I don't know. So I know that I have specifically worked with registered dietitians who have experience in kidney disease, because the registered dietitians I know have to go through schooling to learn specifically about nutrition and the way it affects the body. I don't know what qualifications are needed to be a nutritionist. They may be very similar. I don't know the answer specifically there.
Okay. So there are a couple of questions about, cost. As you know, we have rising food prices, and, some foods, healthier foods can sometimes be pretty expensive. So there are a couple of questions here about cost. What about cost factor and recipes? Many patients are on limited incomes, and some of the resources, what can they do to, I think it's more like help with healthy eating with kidney disease on a limited income. And there's another one that comes in, it says, I think it's from a dietitian actually, most of my patients rely on food pantries for resources. How do you recommend patients manage their diets on tight budgets and limited options?
Boy, it's really hard, isn't it? Boy, it's really hard. I know that this is a really hard thing for a lot of people out there with kidney disease, because your doctor tells you, here I am telling you to eat kidney healthy foods, and yet everything seems very expensive. And then you have $50 to $100 in copays a month for medicines that you need to take. And so eating a healthy diet and staying on budget kind of gets thrown down to the bottom because it seems impossible. And it can be very challenging. So some of the little things that you can try to do if you are using a food pantry or some kind of Meals on Wheels, looking for the lower sodium options is important. If you're getting canned foods, taking your canned foods and rinsing them so you get rid of a lot of the salt that's in there. If you're able to spend a little bit more money than canned foods and get the frozen foods, that can be helpful in a way to save money. Frozen is usually less expensive than fresh. Buying in bulk oftentimes helps, although I know you have to kind of have the initial money to be able to do that at the beginning. So the things that I would focus on, if you're really on a fixed income or a challenging budget, would be to, if you get canned foods or canned vegetables, make sure you rinse them off. Try to buy the frozen vegetables. If you can use things like brown rice, buying a big bag of brown rice, or buying some bulk chicken breasts and then cooking them up and using a little bit at a time through the week, those are things that can sometimes be helpful. But it is a very challenging thing to do, especially as the price of food continues to go up. And I don't have a great answer for it other than those suggestions that I just made.
Well, thank you for that. Now, excuse me, we have a couple of different questions around different stages or types of kidney disease. One question is there a simple list of foods to eat that work well for high cholesterol and CKD3 that don't conflict? And the other question, you can answer those separately, is eating with polycystic kidney disease different than with chronic kidney disease or other kidney disease types?
Okay, well, let's tackle that cholesterol and stage 3 kidney disease question first. So stage 3 kidney disease is kind of the first stage where a lot of doctors start paying attention. And a lot of people who have stage 3 kidney disease often have high cholesterol, and they often have heart disease, and they often have diabetes. So one of the things that can actually be beneficial to both high cholesterol and to kidney disease management is by focusing on limiting meat and adding in plant-based proteins and a plant-based diet. So I'm sorry if I'm stuttering a little bit there. So the focus can be on limiting meat and moving more towards a plant-based diet. And that can be as simple as using smaller chicken breasts or smaller meat in your meals rather than using the whole pound. So if you have a pound of chicken breast, if you spread that out between 5 or 6 meals, you're getting less animal protein with each meal. And that'll be good for both your cholesterol and your kidneys. You can also use things like substitute beans in there for your animal proteins. All of those things are very important for keeping your kidney disease stable. And all of those things will also help your cholesterol. And now the other question, Melanie, tell me again what that was.
Sure. It was about with PKD. So is there a different diet that you recommend for people who have PKD as opposed to chronic kidney disease, or maybe another type of kidney disease? Is eating any different?
Great question. Thank you for reminding me that.
Okay.
Polycystic kidney disease is a very common cause of end-stage kidney disease and chronic kidney disease. And so it's almost exactly the same, the diet for polycystic kidney disease, as it is for chronic kidney disease. It will be more focused on what stage that you are in, more so than what is causing your kidney disease. So if you have polycystic kidney disease, focusing on lower sodium, more fruits and vegetables, cooking at home, limiting your animal protein. Those are the things that we know right now will help with chronic kidney disease and also with polycystic kidney disease. The only difference, and that we are still trying to sort through, is whether people with polycystic kidney disease need to really drink a lot of water. And Melanie, am I hesitating a lot, or is it okay?
No, you sound fine.
Okay, sorry. So we're still learning whether or not people with polycystic kidney disease need to drink excess water in order to protect their kidneys, because there are some studies in animal models that show that mice who drink extra water, their cysts don't grow as fast. And we know there's a medicine called tolvaptan that makes you urinate more, that makes your cysts not grow so fast. So the theory has been that people with polycystic kidney disease need to chug a lot of water in order to keep those cysts from growing. I'm not so sure that that actually makes a difference, but that's the only possible difference between eating for polycystic kidney disease and chronic kidney disease.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Here's a question that's coming in from our Facebook Live. It says, when I try to stick to a renal-friendly diet, my energy level really drops. Any advice?
So my guess, so I don't know where you are on your stage of kidney disease. And so that would make a huge difference. But oftentimes, people find that their energy drops because they are not eating the right amount of nutrients that they need to support their body. And the idea of a renal diet, you know, the general renal diet, if you look at it, kind of makes it look like there's nothing to eat, right? They take out phosphorus and potassium and sodium and low protein, and you're stuck with nothing. And if you're kind of following that generic renal diet, then I can see how your energy level would go very low very quickly. So if you have access to a dietitian to really help you make sure that you are getting the specific diet that is right for your stage of kidney disease, and that is helping you make sure you get the amount of calories and fat and protein you need in a day, then that is where I would start. And if you're unable to do that, maybe just talk to your doctor when you go by to see them to make sure that you are not cutting out things that you shouldn't be cutting out.
Okay.
And I will also say that any diet that you go on that you have to restrict your food can often lead you to have less energy until you get used to it. So no matter what the diet is, that's often the case.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Good point. So we got a response actually to when you were mentioning about the difference, or I was asking about the difference between a registered dietitian and a nutritionist. The answer was, it says Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has a certification for renal dietitians. An master's degree is a nutritionist according to the Academy. Let's see. It said, beware of the correspondence course nutritionists who are health coaches. So I guess there's a specific certification, as you mentioned, to become a renal dietitian through the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So thank you for doing that research.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So back to another question. This is about misconceptions about eating and cooking with kidney disease. I know we talked about that a little bit in the beginning, but I know that this comes up quite a bit. So I'll maybe ask you to answer this again in case maybe some people have joined us later. What are some misconceptions that people have about eating and cooking with kidney disease?
The two biggest misconceptions that I see are, first, that everybody with kidney disease has to eat the same diet, because that is the way it often looks when you Google renal diet or kidney-friendly diet. And that is absolutely not the case, because a kidney diet needs to be specifically tailored to your specific needs and your specific labs and your specific medicines and your specific other problems. So that's the biggest misconception. The second biggest misconception, and this is where it kind of got me into the field of cooking and eating healthy, is that food that is kidney friendly can't taste good. And I think that is where people get stuck a lot of times, because kidney-friendly food often gets looked at as bland, but it doesn't have to be. There are some good tricks that you can use to make that food not bland, using things like herbs and spices and citrus and vinegars and fruits, things to really get the flavor of a dish elevated without using a lot of fat and salt. So kidney-friendly food can taste good. It just takes some work. And if you find that the kidney-friendly food that you are eating doesn't taste good, there are two ways, two possible solutions. The first is that you need to just use more flavor with things like the herbs and the citrus. The second is that you just got to give your taste buds some chance to get used to these new foods. I call it change your buds, because if you've been eating sweet foods and really salty foods for 20 years, you start eating kidney healthy foods and they're going to taste pretty bland and awful. So give yourself a few weeks to get used to the new flavors of kidney healthy foods, and you can get there. So those are the two biggest misconceptions that I see.
Okay. And I know you have a lot of tips about seasonings and how to add flavor to foods on your website and also in your cookbook. So what you're saying is, give yourself a chance to adjust to a new way of eating, because, you said habits sometimes take time to form, but also your taste buds do.
Yeah, so they did a study one time where they looked at people who had a typical American diet, and they sequestered them and took them off salt for a couple of weeks. And then when they went back to eat they gave them unsalted soup, and they asked them to salt the food until it tasted good. And those people actually used much less salt at the end than they did at the beginning. So taste buds and your perception of flavor and good flavor can change if you're willing to be dedicated to it.
Okay. Well, see, I think we have time for a couple of other questions. You just mentioned in the study the typical American diet. We have a lot of different cultures and people from all over the world who may be tuning in or also have kidney disease and have cuisines from all over the place. What do you recommend for someone if they have a specific cuisine that they like and that they're most familiar with? How do you recommend maybe adjusting those dishes to be more kidney friendly?
So the first thing to do is look at the specific ingredients that you're using and focus on, oftentimes recipes have canned tomatoes in them, or canned peppers, or something that is really salty. And so if you're trying to adjust a traditional recipe to something that fits with you, with your health needs, the first thing to do is to look to see what can you eliminate salt on. So that's often things like canned goods. You can choose a no sodium version. You can also limit things like bacon or processed meats that you would include in your recipes because they can carry a lot of salt and fat. The next thing is to make sure that you're starting from scratch with every ingredient in your recipe that you can, because the more you go from scratch, the more you're able to tailor it to your specific needs. So, even in the case of some Italian food where you're using a lot of tomatoes or tomato sauce, but suppose you have high potassium levels in your blood, and so you're trying to still have your favorite tomato sauce recipe, but not quite have as much potassium. So some strategies would be things like using some low sodium or no sodium chicken broth in place of some of the tomatoes to kind of limit the amount of potassium. You can also use things like a roasted red pepper sauce instead of a tomato sauce to help you get that Italian feel without necessarily using as much potassium. So starting with the salt and then going through your specific requirements, whether it's low potassium or low phosphorus, and going through each ingredient of that recipe and seeing what you can substitute in that doesn't quite have those same properties to them.
So you mentioned, cooking from scratch is the best way to control for things like sodium and different nutrients. You're the cooking doc, and a lot of people are intimidated by cooking from scratch, or they've just never done it. What would you recommend for someone who's just, never cooked from scratch, and they may feel, oh, this might be too hard?
All it takes is practice. And you will fail at the beginning, and some of your food will taste terrible. There's no question about it. Half of the dishes that I make at night still taste pretty bad. It's just the nature of cooking. But the more you practice, the better you will get. And I would start with something real simple. So there are people that have never cooked before and don't like vegetables. So, where do you start? So you start with something very simple like a roasted vegetable, and that can be broccoli or cauliflower, and just buying a knife and learning to cut a little bit, and you take the crowns off the broccoli or the cauliflower, put a little bit of olive oil on it, maybe a tiny pinch of salt if you want, and roast it in the oven at 400 for about 20 minutes. So taking real simple recipes as a way to kind of get familiar with the oven and get familiar with your stovetop is a great way to start. And then trying to find some, you can get some very inexpensive used pots that work just as well as the ones that you would buy that are expensive in the store. And buy a few utensils to start with. So you may need a little stirrer and a whisk, and you may need a little spatula. But the rest of and so focusing on kind of those things that you need to start out a kitchen. Oh, and you'll need a knife. So make it real simple. Find what you need to make a few dishes and just start slowly. And then over time, you can build your repertoire and build your skills so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming when you're cooking.
And a great point about equipment. I think sometimes we forget we need certain utensils or pots to make cooking easier. And thrift stores, that's a great way of finding, inexpensive utensils and equipment for cooking. So we just have a couple of minutes, and I want to get to as many questions as I can here. So let's see. I think these are kind of similar. It says, what is the current recommendation for whole grains and legumes? And another one is about plant-based diets. It's what kidney disease stages are best suited for vegetarian or plant-based lifestyles?
So the first question, great question regarding whole grains and legumes. And I think this is a place where the kidney community has really shifted over the course of the last 10 years. Because if you look 10 years back, then the kidney community was basically telling you not to eat legumes and not to eat whole grains because they were high in phosphorus and high in potassium. And I think that's changing because we're learning over time that those foods may not have the same impact on the phosphorus and the potassium in your blood as we thought 10 years ago. And so a lot of people, as they progress through the stages of kidney disease, are able to continue to include whole grains and legumes in their diet. And this is one of those where it depends on what stage you are and what your specific dietary requirements are. There are some people who have stage 5 kidney disease who have low potassium. And so it doesn't matter how much potassium or whole grains or legumes that they eat, their potassium will never go up. And there are other people who are stage 5 kidney disease who have very high potassium. And so they have to be really careful about how many whole grains or legumes that they eat. So it depends where you are on the stage of kidney disease, but we are feeling much more optimistic that a liberalized diet for people all along the spectrum of kidney disease that includes things like legumes and whole grains is going to be possible. So that's a very exciting change in the field of kidney food. And that kind of leads into the second one, the idea about using plant-based diets and vegetarian diets and where they fit along the spectrum. Plant-based diets have a tremendous benefit on people with kidney disease. So having less animal protein, it gives you less of a acid load, which sometimes can lead to less strain on the kidneys. It can give you more nutrients to really help other parts of your body. And so plant-based diets, or at least diets that are high in plants and vegetarian, are a good idea for a lot of people with kidney disease. Now, it does get a little harder as you get down the spectrum from stage 1 to stage 5 kidney disease, because your kidneys may not be able to process that potassium and that phosphorus that comes with a lot of plant-based foods as your kidneys lose their ability to filter. But just like the question with the legumes and the whole grains, we're learning more and more that we may be able to liberalize those foods in your diet.
That's really good to know, because I know many people want to move toward plant-based eating. Well, we have more questions, and I wish we had time to get to them all. This has been a great conversation, and Dr. Schusterman, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us today and providing all of this just fantastic, very valuable information. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. So as a reminder, you can watch Dr. Blake, his cooking videos on our website, on Kidney Kitchen, American Kidney Fund's website. You can also watch a lot of his videos and information on www.thecookingdoc.co, not com, so don't put the M in there, it's just CO at the end, where you can also order his cookbook, the Cooking Doc's Kidney Healthy Cooking, a Modern 10-Step Guide to Preventing and Managing Kidney Disease. And if you didn't catch all of that, we'll have the links in the chat, so you'll be able to write that down, copy it, whatever you need to do. If you aren't already, you can follow us on Facebook, and you can email us at kidneyfund.org. You'll be the first to know about all different resources that we have. And please visit Kidney Kitchen. I mean, we just have a lot of fantastic information there. So just a reminder, once we conclude this session, you'll see a link for a quick survey in the green section below the video screen. If you could take a few minutes to fill that out and tell us how we did, we'd really appreciate it, because the feedback that we get from you, we use that to plan future events and to help maybe design new things that we need. So your feedback is really, really important to us. And also, just a reminder, our next session is our congressional briefing. It will begin at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, so we hope to see you then. And thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.